What's going on to all my Atlanta fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down this third season of Atlanta, episode 8, which was titled New Jazz. I think this should have been called Woods Part 2, and we'll get into that connection because that happened to be season 2, episode 8. I don't think that's a coincidence. We see in this episode, Al gets a new best friend. They go to an interesting club, and he goes on a journey like no other. We're discussing it all here in this spoiler review, but before we do, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel and love early movie reviews, TV breakdowns, and live streams, well, come and join the community today by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And as you all can see on the screen now, if you enjoy what I had to say about Atlanta Season 3, Episode 8, well, make sure you're liking the review as well as sharing it, but more importantly, share your thoughts in the comments, pros, cons, thoughts, theories, deeper meanings that you all took away from this episode, Easter eggs you all caught from this episode. I will continue to thank you all for the continued support on these reviews. I love the engagement, and let's keep that engagement going in the comment section. So before we get into the spoiler breakdown, a couple things I want to point out. Number one, Brian Tyree Henry is such a fantastic actor. And Al, the thing I love about this show, and particularly Al, we spend the most time in his head, right? We know a lot that he deals with depression. I mentioned there's a lot of correlation between this episode, which happens to be episode 8, and go back to season 2 and know that episode was titled Woods. And if you all don't remember Woods, that's when he got jumped by 3 teens. We'll talk about that connection. He went to the woods and met Wiley, which is the same name as the ghost that you all predicted or theorized a couple weeks ago. And he really had a moment of self-reflection in that episode. And I think it's also something to point out. They don't mention the date in this episode, but I don't think it's a coincidence that he is going through this kind of trip. He's going through this kind of maybe depressive state, because I think this is the same day as in season 2, episode 8, that he's thinking about his mom. And particularly, this might be the anniversary when she passed away. I might be wrong, because again, they don't like specifically say what date we're looking at, but I don't think it's a coincidence that this is a same placement of the season of this episode and the same type of theory of getting to his head and his depressive state. I might be wrong, but there's a lot of good stuff going on in this episode. I know a lot of people, and I don't say a lot of people, but I know there's people out there that don't like this season. They feel like it's too woke. It doesn't work for them, right? But to me, this is a very throwback episode of Atlanta, and probably one of my favorite episodes so far this season, because Al, I just really enjoy the headspace that we see him in. Not saying that the depressive head state is a good state to be in, but I'm just saying I like how the show tackles that character. So we're going to get into all of it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's break it all down as we open this episode with Darius. And this is very funny because Lorraine was talking about this later in the episode, not paying for his food, not calling out his boy with his hat, which, by the way, the hat wasn't that bad. Am I wrong? Am I right? But he's not helping out his boy, apparently, which brings me to a really interesting question. Darius is my favorite character because he's just so random. He doesn't care what people think of him. And I like that aspect about him. And I always feel like that's why Al gravitated towards him. Like, he's so detached and just like not on the grid and just has like, he doesn't care what people think. And the question that comes to mind though is, in this episode in particular, I'm thinking to myself, damn, is Darius a freeloader living with Paperboy or Al season 1 and 2 with him on this tour, which he probably didn't pay for? It hurts me to say this, but do you all believe Darius is a freeloader? Is it a two-way friendship or is it a one-way street? Let's have that discussion in the comments below. But getting into the thick of things, we see that Darius is going to take Al on this trip, on this journey, or as he calls it, a spiritual expanding apparatus, as they're looking for this drug, the Naples Space Cape, which comes from the mountains of Denmark by monks. And it's a combination of weed and different ingredients like honey, unknown things that he found from Reddit. Yeah, this is one of those things where I wouldn't be going on this journey with my boy Darius. I'm not gonna lie, but we about to get into this journey. But I found it interesting, and you all probably caught it too, when they're walking down the street on the red light district, which we'll get into the connections there. We see a future version of Al, who we see Darius say, you don't want to end up like that tourist, right? Which we're going to get into that big theme. You don't want to end up like that. We'll get back to that. Just put a pin in that. But yet again, we see Darius not paying for something. He's leaving it up to the world to help someone pay, aka his fate is in Al to pay for all this, as they're about to get ready for all the stuff that they'll get into. Which, by the way, Darius, forget the freeloader conversation. The fact that I can't trust his taste in movies, as he is a fan of Cats, or he says Cats is underrated. Cats is one of the worst films of all time. I just wanted to point that out, Darius. Don't like your taste in movies, my friend. But it is time to go on this journey. And remember what Darius says to him. Whatever happens, I love you, which I'm very curious on what happened to Darius, like where he went on this trip, how hard did this trip hit him. I wonder if we'll ever follow up with that. But speaking of followed up, completely random, I hope this is the case, but Socks has been absent from our crew the last 2 episodes. I hope that they realize he was on some BS and he's never going to be back with our crew again. Something to peep. But let's get into it here. Darius is prepared. He has the old school iPod Nanos. I know y'all remember iPads. I feel so old now. But anyway, he has the music all set up, and I might be digging for this scene here. I'm not too sure if I'm looking too much into it, but we see Al walking down the bridge, and he notices something. He notices that there's some couples that are, engaging in love, right? And I felt like, and this speaks to the mental fortitude of the mental state of Al as where he is in his life, this life of being a hip hop artist and being on the road and not having someone to come home to, someone to gravitate towards romantically. I think he's alone. I think that this scene shows that he's lonely in this moment as we see a white woman like pointing at him. Was it the hat? Was it because he's Paperboy? Or was it because he's black? Because as they point out in this episode, there's not a lot of black people in Amsterdam. Oh, there's one. Oh, there's another one. There's 3 in total. So let me know what you all thought about that. But this is, again, a little small little detail. He notices a dying rat on the floor. Now, I'm thinking to myself, this is Atlanta. It's not just a random rat laying in the streets. What does it mean when you see a rat? What does it symbolize when you see a dead rat? So I looked it up. I went on Reddit. No, I'm joking. I Googled what does dead rat symbolize, and I found things like it includes what it means is beware of betrayal. Be more adaptive, work on your motivation, and beware of sickness. So little things like that kind of ties into beware of betrayal. I don't know if this is talking to my question about being freeloaders, aka Darius, or maybe even Earn, who we'll talk a little bit about later. Be more motivational. Look out for sickness. I don't know if that's foreshadowing. Let me know what you all thought about that. Again, it could just be a dead rat in the middle of the street, Elliot. That doesn't mean anything. But I highly doubt that. But let's get back into it. I feel like, just for another example of going back to betrayal, following Darius on this road, he seems to be lost, and we see him just the blind leading the blind. And more in particularly, we go into the theme about trusting people close to you, as we see Al doesn't feel comfortable just walking in the streets of Amsterdam, being one of 5 black people in Amsterdam. I'm totally joking, but again, it's what they pointed out in this episode. There's not a lot of black people there, but we see he's uncomfortable, and we see all these different tourists going down the red light district, which, number one, I've heard of the red light district growing up, but I always just thought of it as just like a place for prostitution. But there's a lot of fun things to do. I always wanted to go to Amsterdam, like a bucket list trip. But there's more to it than prostitution. There's museums, as we find in this episode. There's a lot of cool things to do. But one of the things that I did look up as far as Amsterdam, there is a policy. Tourists aren't supposed to take pictures of people, but I found it interesting that one of the red light district workers took a picture of Al. Again, as that state to the idea of, oh, there's a black person, or he's a celebrity and he doesn't like that. Again, he just thinks he's a normal person. I don't think he's fully embraced his celebrityism. It doesn't really want to embrace it. But I found that to be interesting. She's taking a photo of him. And again, there's so many interesting facts and so many things about the red light district that it has a certain perception that isn't all the way true. But it's a very cool, interesting place to be, no less. And I found it very interesting that he found himself on this red light district, because it speaks a lot to who Al is mentally right now. But going back to my correlations with this episode being episode 8, dealing with his mental state, his depression, his PTSD, his trauma. Think about what happened in Woods, episode 8. He was attacked by 3 boys, right? Now, correlate that to this episode. He sees 3 people that's like, wait, the hat, making himself stand out. That's Paperboy. Hey, Paperboy, Paperboy. And we see him running away from those kids. Now, you think to yourself, why is he running away from these 3-ass little kids, these teenagers? Well, go back to episode 8. Last time he trusted 3 teenagers who were fans of his, he got jumped and he got robbed and ran into the woods. I don't know if he had PTSD in that moment, because those 3 teenagers, by the way, in this episode, savages. Like, they take that random woman's baby and playing football with the baby. Yeah, I think he made the right call in not trying to interact with those crazy ass boys. Let me know if you all caught that correlation between maybe some PTSD with fans calling him out on the streets based on what happened to him last year. And again, the baby being tossed around, what the hell is going on? But we see he accidentally stumbles into this museum, which is another thing about the red light district. There are more than prostitutes, things to do. You can go to museums. As he walks into a venue, and again, I might be stretching, you see him walk into a particular scene where this woman is crying in front of everyone. Now, to me, again, this is just my thoughts on it. She's publicly crying as a form of artwork in front of people, and watching her cry, connect that to Al being a public figure and being pointed at, made fun of, maybe canceled by others, and it's all for entertainment. I don't know if there's a connection there. Let me know if you guys caught that same thing or thought about the same things. But then we transition to him meeting his new friend, a real one, I guess, as she calls it. We meet Lorraine, who is played by Avia Gray, who's an up-and-coming. She has a really interesting story. If you all aren't too familiar with her, 24 years old, used to be homeless, made her way to Hollywood, activist, been in shows like Pose, obviously in a show like this. So she's definitely an up-and-coming actress, and I really liked her chemistry with Brian Tyree Henry in this episode. Let me know what you all thought about Ava Gray's performance as Lorraine, aka his manifestation ghost of his mom, but we'll get to that later. But she is clowning him over that hat, as we know, is not a good look apparently, which I didn't think it was, but she wants to be his good friend, as she calls it. And then again, I don't know, this is another thing, a little Easter egg. I found it so interesting on the wall. There was something that said shifting perspective. And again, I think this whole episode is his perspective of him as an individual, or as him as a rapper, and what this path he's going on might lead him down, being in a depression paralysis, which we see him later in the episode. But back into the conversation, we see that she is not there to observe the art. She's there to observe people, or to make fun of people, as she kind of does in this moment, talking about white Lizzo and the kids' fashions and whatnot. As we see, Al notices that there are more people that are looking at him, and more people taking pictures of him, more people wanting to gravitate towards his fame and his fortune and stuff of that nature, which is, again, a continued theme in this episode. His fear of being a celebrity. As we see at the conversation, are you a nobody to everyone, as she points out. She calls him a rapper, and the perception of rappers, and not having a clue of their finances, which I know as far as being a fan of hip hop and hearing so many different stories of artists that don't know their royalties. I think of Lil Wayne, one of my favorite rappers of all time back in the day, who, his closest friend or, mentor or father figure and baby took all his money, all his royalties. Him not having control over his music for like almost 7 years is crazy. She brings up, hey, you're a rapper, and it's so funny. You have no clue where your money goes. Who owns your masters? He's like, what? Like, he doesn't answer that. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit later, because I don't know if Ern was telling the truth, but we'll get to that later. But we see Lorraine gives him a hat to make him not stand out and kind of fit in with the normal. Now, again, I mentioned he doesn't want to embrace his celebrityism. He just wants to fit in. He just wants to be normal. I think that is important. He puts on the little hat to fit in with everyone else. As they make their way outside and the trip is starting to begin, the drugs are hidden, because now it's all of a sudden nighttime. How long was he in that museum, if he was even in that museum to begin with? It's nighttime. They're walking down the red light district. It's night. I don't know if you all caught this, though. They're walking down the red light district. He's looking at all the stuff going on, maybe feeling a little bit uncomfortable, being exposed, and he can't find Lorraine. Remember, Lorraine is the name of his mom. And listen, if you didn't catch this, watch it carefully. I think it was 16 minutes and 21 seconds into the episode. You hear his heart beating. You hear like he's starting to get nervous. He's starting to get uncomfortable. He's looking for his mom, Lorraine. Directly, that ghost per se. I think that speaks a lot to him being lost. He's lost right now in his life. And again, if I am to be right that this is the time of the year that he's celebrating the loss of his mom, he's nervous. Again, he's lost. I think that speaks a lot to that moment. Again, 16 minutes and 21 seconds. You can hear his heart beating crazy and crazy as Lorraine finally comes up and helps him, as she takes him to this very exclusive club that we'll get into as she is introducing him to her new friends as New Jazz. Now, peep me up, help me out in the comments. I looked up New Jazz and I found some very interesting terminologies of New Jazz, but most of it was like music, right? But I don't know if it means something deeper other than it being he's a new tourist, or thinking back to my correlation to episode 8 of season 2 when Wiley called him deer guts and like kind of like a deer in the headlights. I wonder if there's like a correlation to just being unaware of your surroundings. I don't know. Let me know in the comment what New Jazz means. But as they go in, they're getting drinks, and we see Lorraine disappears, which goes back to my was she really there in the first place theory. And is any of this going on right now in reality? I don't know if you all also noticed that when they're in this club, there was other ethnicities, other age ranges, but the majority of the people in this club were old white men. In which, speaking of old white men, we're going to get into our cameo here in a second, but I think it speaks to cancel club, because who tends to get canceled pretty quickly in today's society? A lot of different people, but old white men tend to get themselves canceled pretty quickly, and we'll get into a particular white man that happened to a couple years ago. But it begs the question, we get into the conversation into who are you Paperboy? Oh, I'm a rapper, whatever the case may be. How do you and Lorraine know each other? As he goes into his story about he found the hat, describing it much differently than what we saw, which again goes to, was Lorraine even in the museum? Did he make her up in his head? And then they get into the conversation about who Lorraine is. She's known to people, I thought this was hilarious. She's known to, hanging out with rappers or spending some intimate time with rappers. Her apartment is known as 106 in Park, which alludes to she hooks up with a lot of rappers. As we know, back in the day, Free and AJ's a lot of rappers on that show, so you can put two and two together. She, like I said, she hooks up with a lot of rappers, if she's even a real person, which again speaks to Amsterdam. And also, was Lorraine a metaphor for the red light district? A lot of people come down here looking for some action, prostitution, and that was like a big metaphor. Lorraine is the red light district. Let me know if I'm a little bit off on that correlation. But we get back into, y'all remember Socks, as I talked about, where he's at. I don't care, because I don't like that guy. He's messing with our crew, but he mentioned himself as the white Liam Neeson. I guess that was foreshadowing, because Liam Neeson is in this goddamn episode. I was caught by the surprise seeing him. I thought it was just like, because we know this show likes to play on, like, I think of Justin Bieber in season 1, I want to say. It might have been season 2. He was black. It wasn't Justin Bieber, right? And there was other examples of like celebrities in the Atlanta world aren't the same celebrities in our reality. So the fact that was Liam Neeson, it was like, oh, they're playing into the real world now, which I thought was funny. But I also found it funny as Al's walking up to him like, oh, I never expected a person like you. And he doesn't say the word that he wanted to say, because there is a very controversial thing that Mr. Liam Neeson has said about a particular group of individuals, black people. I'm going to get into his, if you guys don't know, the comments that they're referring to before we get into it. Back in, I want to say it was 2019, he was doing a press junket for Cold Pursuit, I think was the name of the movie, which was terrible. But he says in this episode, I don't have to relay word by word, but essentially he said in his interview that his friend of his, as he said in this episode, was raped, and it was supposedly a black person. He wanted to find and kill and hunt down a black person, any black person, for what happens to his friend. So that was the controversy. You can look it up to get more details, which is pretty messed up on his part. But the comments that he makes got him canceled, but he's still here. He's still making movies, Liam Neeson. I found it so interesting when Al says, I still F with Taken. I still watch Taken. I still watch Liam Neeson films, even though he says such a despicable thing, which says so much about us as individuals. And I think we can all correlate to this, separating the art from the artist. But there are movie stars, singers, pop culture people that have done despicable things or have said things, but we still support them. So that does speak to just a larger conversation that we can spend 30 minutes on. But in this particular conversation, we find out that this is a very exclusive club, which again, a lot of old white man. We see that this, as he asks out, well, how did you end up in here? Because it's pretty much the same demographic, but did you choke a fan? Did you sleep with a teen? And as we see Al removes the glass, this is the cancel club. This is the place where people go that have been canceled. And Liam Neeson is one of them, even though he says, oh, y'all tried to cancel me, but you didn't do it, which I found to be so funny. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, if we're diving deeper into the subconscious of Paperboy Al, Did he get himself canceled based on episode 6, which we remember a couple weeks ago was titled White Fashion? And if we remember that episode, which again, shout out to you all, helping me out. I didn't even correlate. Central Park 5 was obviously what went down in the 90s and everything. Ava DuVernay did a series on it, which I covered and love that series. Such a great, powerful series. But did he get himself canceled for still working with that fashion company? Or did he get himself canceled because of that reinvest in your hood commercial? So I'm wondering if that is something that's in reality something that he's dealing with cancel culture. I wonder if that's going on right now. But again, very interesting conversation. We end the conversation with Liam Neeson saying, I can't even do my Liam Neeson impression. I used to do a really good one back in the day, but he says they're mortal enemies, and he hasn't really learned his lesson because the benefit of being white, you don't have to learn a lesson, which again speaks to the cancel culture and all the white men that's in this exclusive club. But we see that Lorraine saves her son because they're about to have this new jazz perform in front of everyone, which she saves him at that point, which again, I don't know what it speaks to that they were going to be a black man performing in front of all these old white men. It might again speak to just the metaphors and the themes and the undertone that this episode is trying to present. But as we wrap up, we see Lorraine and Al get into this discussion as Lorraine calls him out for the stuff of not trusting her. Who do you trust? You got your friends taking your money. You got your family handling your business. Like, damn, he didn't tell you any of that stuff, which makes me go back to this is his subconscious. This is not a real person. This is a manifestation of his thoughts, his disbeliefs. Something his mom probably would have told him to look out for who you put around you. Look out for people like socks. Look out for people like your family that might not be fully invested in you. Even friends like Darius. I think that's what his subconscious, his mom would have been there to remind him of those things to look out for. As we end up saying, she ends up telling him, you don't feel nothing. You don't feel your arms. You don't feel your legs. And he ends up becoming that same person that Darius told him not to be, a tourist, a person that has been maybe canceled, someone that's going down a path of being canceled, someone that's ended up on the streets dead, broke, having all their royalties not under their name, not having the masters under their name, going down this certain path that's going to end you on this depression, this paralysis of brokenness and things of that nature. He's become that in his head if he continues to go down this path, because he wakes up, it's a new day. He's been passed out for the last 10 hours. Again, did he even make it to the streets of the red light district, or did he just pass out right then and there? And we see that Ern picked him up and brought him back to the hotel. Was it all in his head? Let me know your thoughts on that. I think it was just in his head. I think he experienced some of it, but not all of it. But we end up wrapping up with him having the big reveal. He says, where's Lorraine? You talking about your mom? Which again makes me think that this was the day that his mom passed away. And whenever that day comes about, we get episode 8. We get episode 8 of season 2, episode 8 of season 3, and this is just him reflecting on himself and not having the most important person in his life, number one supporter on his side, who's passed away. So, very interesting episode, and we end it with Al asking Ern, when you renegotiated my deal, did you get me my master's? And he says, wait, what? And he says, did you get me my master's when you renegotiate my deal? He said, yeah, I did. Ern, I respect the hustle. I respect what he's gotten, what he's grown into in this manager position. Do y'all believe him? Did he renegotiate his masters to be in his name, or is he just saving face and just lying in his face, and then the family handling his finances, not looking out for his investment, his cousin? Let me know. I don't know. I'm hoping that Ern is a good guy. We've seen some behavior that might not speak to that, and some trickery and some betrayal, as we talked about with that rap. But let me know if you all trust Ern, and let me know all your thoughts, your themes, your predictions, your deeper meanings. This is all just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm just here to discuss this episode with you all, and I want to have that discussion in the comments. If you stuck around to this point in the video, thank you so much. Again, there are incredible content creators on this very platform that are sharing their reviews every single week. Very insightful, very enthusiastic, just a good, type of discussion that the show brings to the table. So the fact that you all watch my reviews every single week, It means a lot. So I really want to thank you all. Again, before you leave, make sure to like the review, share the review, leave your thoughts in the comments, pros, cons, thoughts, theories, opinions that you feel about the show, and no right or wrong answers. So let's have that discussion in the comment section. Thank you all for watching this review. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you had a good time. As you can see on the screen now, come and join the community if you haven't already. Check out my other Atlanta reviews. Check out my Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness review. We'll check you all on the next video.